Most people imagine the final stage of life arriving suddenly, almost like a door closing without warning. But the human body rarely works that way. More often, it sends quiet signals over time. These signals are not dramatic, and they are not meant to frighten anyone. They are simply gentle changes that happen as the body begins slowing down. Doctors, caregivers, and families often notice these patterns long before the final chapter arrives. Understanding them does not mean giving up on life. In many ways, it means learning how to live more intentionally, with more peace and awareness. When seniors recognize these signs early, they can focus their energy on what truly matters: comfort, connection, reflection, and the simple moments that bring meaning. Today, we're going to talk calmly and honestly about 6 signs that may suggest an elderly person has entered the final year of life, and more importantly, what every senior should understand when these changes begin to appear. The first sign is something many families notice without fully understanding it at first: a noticeable loss of appetite and gradual weight loss. Food, which once brought joy or routine to daily life, slowly becomes less important. Meals become smaller. A plate that used to be finished now remains half untouched. Favorite foods that once felt comforting may no longer hold the same appeal. For many seniors, this change can be confusing to those around them. Family members sometimes worry and encourage them to eat more, thinking strength comes from finishing every meal. But the truth is that as the body slows down, it simply requires less fuel. The metabolism changes. Organs begin working more gently, and the body naturally reduces its demand for energy. Forcing large meals during this time can actually create discomfort instead of strength. Many doctors who work with elderly patients explain that this shift is a normal part of the body adjusting to a slower rhythm. What becomes more important at this stage is not the quantity of food but the comfort and enjoyment it brings. Small portions of foods that are easy to eat and pleasant to taste can be far more meaningful than large meals that feel like a chore. A bowl of warm soup, a piece of fruit, a favorite dessert shared with a loved one. These moments can carry more value than a perfectly balanced diet plan. Hydration also becomes more important than strict nutritional goals. Sipping water, tea, or broth throughout the day helps the body stay comfortable without placing stress on digestion. For seniors, understanding this change can remove a great deal of unnecessary pressure. Eating less is not a sign of failure or weakness. It is simply the body communicating that its needs have changed. Listening to those signals with kindness often leads to greater comfort. Closely connected to this change in appetite is the second sign many seniors experience: persistent, unexplained fatigue. This type of tiredness is very different from the normal fatigue that follows a busy day. It is deeper and more constant. Even after a long night of sleep, the body may still feel drained. Activities that once felt simple, walking around the house, preparing a small meal, or having a long conversation, can suddenly require much more effort. Seniors may find themselves sitting quietly for longer periods, resting more often, or feeling the need to lie down during the day. Sometimes this shift worries families, who fear something is terribly wrong. But in many cases, the body is simply redirecting its energy. As people grow older, the body becomes more selective about how it uses its strength. Instead of spending energy on constant activity, it begins conserving resources for essential functions. The heart, lungs, and internal systems continue working, but they do so with a slower, more deliberate pace. This natural adjustment often creates the sensation of ongoing fatigue. From the outside, it might appear as though someone has lost motivation or interest in the world around them. In reality, the body is asking for gentleness. It is inviting a slower rhythm of life. For seniors, this stage can actually offer an opportunity to simplify daily routines. There is no longer a need to push through exhaustion in order to stay busy. The pressure to remain constantly productive begins to fade. Instead, energy can be reserved for moments that truly matter. A quiet conversation with a grandchild, sitting by a window watching the afternoon light, listening to music that brings back memories, these small experiences often become more meaningful than a long list of tasks. Rest stops feeling like laziness and begins to feel like wisdom. The body is not failing. It is guiding the person toward a gentler way of living. The third sign that often appears during this period is an increase in illness or a noticeably slower recovery from minor health problems. A cold that once disappeared within a few days might now linger for weeks. Small infections can take longer to heal. Even minor injuries may require more time for the body to repair. This change happens because the immune system gradually becomes less responsive with age. The body still fights illness, but it does so at a slower pace. The defenses that once worked quickly now operate with more caution and less intensity. For seniors, this can feel frustrating at first. Many people who spent their lives being strong and independent suddenly notice that their bodies require more care and patience. But understanding this shift can help remove some of that frustration. Instead of pushing through sickness or ignoring symptoms, the wiser approach becomes prevention and gentle care. Avoiding unnecessary stress, resting when the body asks for it, and allowing time for recovery can make a tremendous difference. Sometimes the most powerful decision a person can make is simply to slow down. Families also play an important role during this stage. Encouraging seniors to rest rather than expecting them to maintain the same pace they once had can help protect their health and comfort. The body, after many decades of work and resilience, deserves compassion and patience. And when these three early signs, reduced appetite, deep fatigue, and slower recovery from illness, begin appearing together, they often signal that the body is entering a quieter phase of life. It is not necessarily the end of anything meaningful. In fact, for many people, it becomes the beginning of a more reflective and peaceful period, where life is measured less by activity and more by presence. And as we continue, there are several other changes that many seniors begin to notice during this stage, changes that often reveal just how deeply the body and mind prepare for the final chapters of life. As the body continues moving through this quieter phase of life, many seniors begin noticing another change that can feel confusing at first, especially to family members who are used to seeing them active and engaged. This next shift often appears in the form of changing sleep patterns. Sleep, which once followed a familiar routine for decades, begins to move in a different rhythm. Some seniors start sleeping more during the day. Others wake frequently during the night and spend long stretches of time resting quietly in bed. Afternoon naps become longer, while nighttime sleep may feel lighter or more fragmented. At first glance, it can seem unusual, even concerning. But for many elderly individuals, this change is simply the body adjusting its internal clock. The human body runs on rhythms that have been developed over an entire lifetime. As people grow older, those rhythms naturally begin to shift. Hormonal cycles, body temperature patterns, and the signals that regulate sleep and wakefulness gradually change. The result is a schedule that may no longer resemble the one a person followed for most of their adult years. Some seniors feel alert early in the morning and tired by mid-afternoon. Others drift in and out of sleep throughout the day. The important thing to understand is that there is no longer a single correct schedule. The idea of sleeping 8 uninterrupted hours at night becomes less relevant. What matters far more is comfort. When seniors allow themselves to follow the rhythm their body naturally chooses, sleep can still provide deep restoration even if it happens in shorter segments. Resting when tired and waking when the body feels ready often works better than forcing a strict routine. Families sometimes worry that daytime naps will prevent nighttime sleep, but for older adults the body simply distributes rest differently. Instead of resisting these changes, Accepting them usually leads to a greater sense of peace. A quiet afternoon nap in a comfortable chair, sunlight coming through the window, can be one of the most restorative moments in the day. Alongside these changes in sleep, many seniors also experience a shift in how they interact with the world around them. This brings us to another sign that often appears during the final stage of life, a gradual withdrawal from social activities. Someone who once enjoyed busy gatherings or long conversations may begin choosing quieter moments instead. Invitations might be declined more often. Phone calls may become shorter. Time alone may increase. For family members, this shift can sometimes be misunderstood as sadness or loneliness. It is natural to worry when a loved one begins stepping back from social life. But in many cases, what is happening is far more reflective than it is negative. As the body slows, the mind often turns inward. Many seniors begin reflecting on their experiences, memories, and the long journey that brought them to this moment. Instead of seeking stimulation from the outside world, they may find greater comfort in quiet reflection. Sitting alone does not always mean feeling lonely. It can mean revisiting memories, processing emotions, and quietly appreciating the life that has unfolded over decades. For some people, these moments become deeply meaningful. They create space to think, remember, and understand life in ways that busy schedules never allowed before. Family members who recognize this change can support it by offering presence without pressure. Simply sitting together in the same room, sharing a cup of tea, or watching the evening light fade through the window can feel far more comforting than a long conversation. The need for constant interaction begins to fade, but the value of companionship remains. Sometimes the greatest gift a loved one can give is quiet understanding. Being there without demanding energy allows seniors to feel supported while still honoring the natural inward focus that comes with this stage of life. Then, as time moves forward, many seniors begin experiencing one of the most meaningful and profound signs of all. This change does not always involve the body in a physical way. Instead, it appears in the emotional and psychological world of the individual. It often begins with a gentle but noticeable desire to put things in order. Some people start organizing belongings that have accumulated over a lifetime. Others begin giving away personal items that hold sentimental value. A watch may be passed down to a grandchild. Old letters might be sorted through carefully. Photo albums may be revisited one quiet afternoon after another. This process is rarely rushed. Instead, it unfolds slowly and thoughtfully. Each object often carries a memory, and revisiting those memories becomes part of the experience. Seniors may also begin talking more about earlier chapters of their lives. Stories from childhood, young adulthood, and family milestones come to the surface. These stories sometimes emerge again and again, not because they have been forgotten, but because they hold meaning that feels important to share. Through these memories, seniors often pass down wisdom that cannot be found in books. Relationships may also come into focus during this time. Some people feel a strong desire to reconnect with friends or relatives they have not spoken to in years. Old misunderstandings may suddenly feel less important. The need for forgiveness and closure becomes clearer. In many cases, conversations during this period carry a special depth. Words of gratitude, affection, and reconciliation appear naturally, often without anyone planning them. These exchanges can become treasured moments for both the senior and the people they love. This stage is sometimes misunderstood as a sign of fear about the future, but in reality it often reflects emotional clarity. After many decades of living, people begin to recognize what truly matters and what does not. The focus shifts away from possessions, schedules, and achievements. Instead, attention moves toward relationships, memories, and the legacy of kindness left behind. For families, Witnessing this process can feel both moving and comforting. It reminds everyone that the closing chapters of life can carry just as much meaning as the beginning. And when all of these signs appear together, the quieter appetite, the deeper fatigue, the shifting sleep rhythms, the slower pace of healing, the gentle withdrawal from busy social life, and the thoughtful desire to bring life's story into order, they form a picture that many caregivers recognize. It is not a picture of loss alone. It is a picture of transition. The body is gradually slowing, but the mind and heart often become clearer than ever. In many ways, the final stage of life invites people to focus on the things that truly define a human life: connection, presence, compassion, and reflection. For seniors who recognize these changes within themselves, the most important thing to remember is that this stage does not remove the value of their life. Quite the opposite. It highlights the wisdom gathered over decades. Productivity may fade, but presence becomes powerful. A quiet conversation, a shared memory, or a simple moment of laughter can carry enormous meaning. Life does not suddenly lose its purpose in these final chapters. Instead, its purpose becomes more concentrated, centered on the relationships and experiences that have always mattered most. Growing older is not something to fear. It is something to honor. Every stage of life holds its own lessons and beauty, and the later years often reveal a kind of peace that younger generations rarely understand until they experience it themselves. By recognizing the gentle signals the body provides and responding with patience and kindness, seniors and families can walk through this time together with dignity, understanding, and even gratitude for the long journey that brought them here.